You are listening to Turning 75, when last week I was 16. This is the place where you can go to help become your most authentic self and live the life that you want to live. Hi, it's Bonnie, back again. And what we're going to do today is sit on the porch swing and just learn how to be who we want to be in the pretty much last phase of our life so that we can get the most enjoyment and fulfillment out of it. So, I want us to learn how to meet people where we are versus where they want us to be. Now, I've always been a very avid reading. I always have a book around me. Sometimes in situations where I don't have my book with me, I am forced to use my phone. And I never wanted to be one of those people who were sitting someplace and instead of enjoying the scenery or enjoying each other, they have their eyes glued to the phone. But I find myself sometimes if I'm waiting, so if I'm in Costco's and I get the hot dog for lunch, yeah, sometimes I do that and I'm eating it, and I just will turn on my phone and read the news or something. And I read all kinds of things, articles, newspapers, whatever. Lately, I have been seeing on my phone a lot of articles on aging. You know, what happens when you age? What issues do you have when you age? And I noticed that the articles were coming from Psychology Today. Now, that's a magazine that's been out for years. I remember in high school, I would love to buy that book, I mean, the magazine, just to skim through and see what they're talking about. And this article that I read, the first one I read, was talking about how outspoken baby boomers were now silent about being alone and being lonely. And reminded me of the podcast that I've already produced, once called Opening the Vents, and the others, We Were Camelot. And that also talked about using your voice. Because when we get older, when we become seniors, suddenly it seems like our voice doesn't matter anymore. People won't listening to people aren't listening to us. People are just ignoring the things that we have to say. And we let it happen for many reasons. But one of the things that I found that many seniors, and I was reading about this too, they feel that, well, my children are busy with their own lives because now they're raising their own children and they don't have time to spend with me or to talk on the phone with me. And they're juggling their jobs and dealing with financial issues and job issues. And even our grandkids, because if you're my age, most likely your grandchildren are now in college. And so they're now dealing with their own independence, or they may be older and entering the workplace. So they have other things that they have to learn and go through. So we don't want to be intrusive. And we feel that, they have their places and they don't have time for us anymore. And I did have one of the seniors, because, I'm a companionship in the program with seniors helping seniors. And the times that I have heard they're busy with their own life. It was said in anger, not pure anger, but you could hear the anger in their voice as they made the statement. And I know what they're talking about because my grandson is in college. First time he was young. He skipped a grade in school and graduated early. So he's kind of young going into college, being on their own. And because I knew that he was having to navigate a brand new world that he probably wasn't ready for, I told him, I'm not going to call you because you now have to been a straight A student all through high school and, all through your whole schooling years, as a matter of fact. You have to learn how now to keep the grades up while you're in college because it's a different environment. People teach you differently. You're going to be learning differently. And so I'm not going to call you. Call me when you want to talk. Well, I had to then tell my daughter, and I told them both at the same time. I told my daughter, now stop telling him to call me. Because a lot of times when he was home, she would say, "Have you talked to your grandmother lately?" Or call her. And I would say, "Don't just call me when she tells you to call me. Call me because you want to talk to me. And if you don't want to talk to me, then don't call me." And when he, okay, the first semester he was in school, I think he called me once, maybe twice. I don't know. Second semester, he's still in that, but he has called me once. But I know he's busy. I know he's studying. And, I told them both that my grandson and I have to redefine our relationship. I was very close to him because I watched him as a baby. I used to see him pretty much every day. Sometimes I'd pick him up from school. And, I had a child care when he was born. I had a program and a child care program that I got certified by the state. And I never had more than 4 kids at one time because it was, just something to do. But I had a good program, and I taught those children, those babies, a lot, and I pretty much charged a lot, and I had a lot of executives, doctors and lawyers and executives that liked my childcare. So, I was charging them what I was worth, and I do know my worth. But now that he was going to college and I moved away about when he was a freshman in high school, so we don't have that closeness that we used to. And I told my daughter, but don't tell him to call me because now he has to define what he wants his relationship with me to be. And we're going to have to work through that. And we are working through that. When he doesn't call, I know that he's never been a telephone person. So I understand that. And I also understand that he spends hours studying. How do I know that? His mom tracks him. And she'll say, "Oh, he's in this hall, and that's where he goes to study." I said, "Till 4 o'clock in the morning," she said. Well, and he was taking 18 hours, and he had to maintain his scholarship with a certain grade point level. And he spent a lot of time studying because he took too many classes that everyone wanted him not to. Anyway, I said that's on him. But even with our adult children, we have to constantly redefine our relationships. I'm staying with my daughter for a while right now because I have to have some surgery done, and I didn't want it done where I lived because I'm not trusting that medical system. But I know the medical system in Ohio where she lives because I used to live here. And so I said, if I'm going to have this level of surgery, I have to have it done in Ohio. My support system is there. But while I'm here at her house, she's constantly looking for things to me to do. She'll say things like, "It's such a nice day. Don't you want to go outside for a walk?" And I'll say, "If I wanted to, I would. What's up?" And she keeps coming up with things like that. And I remind her that I used to live in this city. I know where my favorite places are. And if I want to go there, I will go. And I have my car this time because I had to have it with me because I had to close down my house in the resort town that I live in. And would, she would say to me, "Well, I'm just trying to be considerate." I said, "No, you may be trying to be considerate, but if you're telling me what I should do when I know what I should do, I think that you're being a bit condescending. And you're treating me like I'm a doddering idiot or something." And so we now have to redefine our relationship while I'm here. You are saying that you're worried about, am I being occupied? But I didn't ask you to do that. So she said, "Well, you're not understanding and let me, just trying to be considerate of you." And I said, "Again, I didn't ask you to do that either." But if we don't have these conversations, then we're going to continually butt heads, right? So when grand the seniors are saying, "Oh, I'm lonely because the kids don't call and the grandkids don't come by anymore," have you tried to redefine your relationship? Because if you're not taking these conversations aren't taking place, then you're never really establishing what your expectations are. And the seniors say, "I don't want to be a burden on anyone," and they treat me differently, you know. And in one of the podcasts I produced previously, I said, "Yeah, seniors do talk slower. Seniors do search for the words." And you're going to do that when you started turning 50. You start searching for those words that don't come to you immediately. you start slowing down a little bit. And I say it's okay to be slow, to make your point. What is not okay is having someone think it's all right to complete your sentences. You may not want you may want me to go faster in what I have to say. And you have the right to do that. But what you don't have the right to do is anticipate what I'm going to say or finish my sentences. So it's a balance. And we have to work through those balances. I think, in my opinion, maybe people don't feel comfortable having those conversations. Now, this Psychology Today thing that's going on, they're having uh, lots of articles on aging, whether it's the mental health or navigating dementia. And they're just several things that are pretty interesting when you have the time to read through them. So I'm not going to go all clinical on this because this is not the purpose of this podcast. But I'm going to say that one thing that we always have to be aware of is how in the United States, the society the society today does not value seniors. We're not looked upon with the respect as seniors are looked upon in other cultures. We feel like sometimes we're being put out to pasture because no one gives seniors the time or the respect that they deserve. And I used to have an uncle. I was younger. I was in my teenage years. And he would always look at us whippersnappers, as he called us, and say, "You got the lock, but I got the key." Now, when we were kids, we didn't understand. Oh, Uncle Stephen, if you listen to him, if you take the hour or two to sit down and talk to him and listen to him, he makes a lot of sense. But we just don't have the hour or two to sit down and listen. But as you get older, you understand what he's talking about. Young people have all the opportunities spread out before them, but what they don't have is the key to opening up those opportunities. And they don't want to take the time to listen to the seniors because they feel, oh, what do they know what they're talking about? They're old school. The world is not like it is today. But in some ways, it's just like it is. I don't force the conversation. I'm not about that because another article in this series I read is all about how some seniors feel they constantly have to be contributing or adding value to their existence. They feel just by being there, it's not enough. So they have to be on this board or they have to plan these things or they always have to make themselves feel that they are of value to someone. And the article was saying that the happiest seniors are the ones who are just existing because they're there. And they're not trying to be anything more than being there. And that's what makes them happy. And they are the most content because they're realizing I don't need to do anything because I don't have to. You don't need to do anything but be there because you've gone through the trials of tribulation. Heck, we all know. If you're my age, we all know that it was not easy getting here. We had a lot of happy days and we had just as many unhappy days. We worried. We didn't worry. We went through the life cycle of experiencing things and learning things for ourselves. My learning is different than your learning, it's different than someone else's learning, but we don't have to justify any of that. Now, if you listen to any of my other podcasts, I take little part time jobs to get out the house. I'm not a person that can stay in the house. I don't like shopping at all. I just have to be doing something. And I take jobs that allow me the freedom of working when I want to work. For example, as a substitute teacher. And so teaching is cool, but if I'm in elementary school, but even some of those elementary schools, children are just too special for me. And so I also started working in the cafeterias. And I never knew what hard work was like before, other than working in a cafeteria that prepares the lunches and the snacks and stuff for the kids. It is hard work. Where I live full time, everything is made from scratch every day. But it's a hard job, but it's a satisfying job. I work so hard. I don't sit down the whole morning that I'm there, the whole time that I'm there. But I don't have to go to the gym at night because I get a good workout, preparing those foods and doing the dishes and all that kind of stuff. And I find it to be sort of relaxing, even though it is hard work, because the kitchens have the radio on and we're singing through the oldies, and it's just like, it's cool. But I never have to work. I schedule maybe 2 days a week, maybe one, depends on what I feel like doing that week. I decide what days I want to work. Sometimes I'll get up in the morning and say, I don't have anything for the plan today, anything planned for today. Let me go online and see if there are any last minute substitutes they need, because I might work from 11 to 2 and still make, a decent money for that day because they pay you for the half days, even though if you work a couple hours. And so it's a good thing that I feel like doing, but I don't have to do it. And so I find that it is easier for me knowing that some weeks I don't work at all. Some weeks I'll work 3 or 4 days. If a school that likes me calls me and says, "Can you come in?" I'll say, "Okay, I've been there before. It's easy work. Let me go in." But it's based on what I feel like doing. So I'm not doing this to prove that I'm still worthy of being here. I'm doing this because I work at the convenience of me. It helps me alleviate my boredom of just sitting around the house, which I don't like to do. So, you have to decide what works best for you. Every individual has to define what matters to you, and we don't we may need to repurpose our lives, but we don't need to change our lives. So I've joined book clubs, and I say, I want to read what I want to read. Some of these books I don't feel like reading. The senior centers where I live are beyond boring. I mean, really, bingo and a bologna sandwich for lunch. So my quest for appropriate socialization still is in progress, but it's not so much as I having to identify a purpose as it is finding a place where my identity of just existing and enjoying the life of leisure is consistent with those people around me. Some people find it in church, and it is a wonderful place to go to connect with other people. Some communities, like the community I live in, have social times with each other. They'll have potluck dinners and group outings and stuff. First of all, I'm not going to eat your potluck dinner unless I've been in your house to see how clean it is. I don't eat just anybody's food. And I don't really care for having my neighbors in my business. Sometimes I find that the hypocrisy or the gossipy situations just aren't for me. I want to be friendly with the people that live around me, but I don't need to invite you in my house, and I really don't need to go in yours. I mean, does that make sense? Hi, how you doing? Chat for 5 minutes and bye. That's enough for me. So I know that I'm cutting off outlets that could be more involved, but I'm cool with that. Again, define your space based on who you are and your most authentic self. I don't like clingy people. I don't like people who text me 5 or 6 times a day. I don't want those relationships anymore, whether you're male or female. I'm not looking for that. I'm not willing to mold myself into what you expect me to be. I'm going to compromise with you on certain things, like my daughter and I will have to learn how to compromise on how we define this relationship that we have now. Other people may think that you have nothing to share with them or you can't relate to their lifestyle, but you never know until you try. But at this point, as a senior, I think you should be adapting yourself to me versus me adapting myself to you. Again, seniors are not treated with the level of respect in this society that I think that they should be. But it's the way it is. So have those conversations. Don't just sit back and be lonely. That's not good for you. And if you're in that situation, I know how you feel because I felt that way sometimes. And then I think about what I would have to be more welcoming. And I go, I don't know if I really want to do that. Sometimes the ability to close my door and know that the door's going to stay closed is okay. I think what I want to leave with you today is just to have you think about this and have you remember that in any situation, you don't always need to bend to another person's will. I don't have to do it because you think I should or you say I should. I don't care if you are a new acquaintance or if you are a valued family member. Just not changing at this point in my life. And one thing that I've learned, and it could be a hard lesson at first, but it's a lesson that's going to bring you the most peace sometime. And that is simply this. Sometimes love works best at a distance.